How's it going, guys? Brandon here, and today we're going to be talking about this brilliant book by Albert Camus, The Myth of Sisyphus. As the book opens up, Albert Camus outlines the central question he's attempting to answer throughout the book. Is life worth living, or should we commit suicide? Interestingly, he says on the second page, I have never seen anyone die for the ontological argument. Whether the earth or the sun revolves around the other is a matter of profound indifference, to tell the truth. It is a futile question. On the other hand, I see many people die because they judge that life is not worth living. He goes on, I therefore conclude that the meaning of life is the most urgent of questions. Albert Camus also says at the start that in this book there will be no metaphysic, there will be no belief. However, I tend to extrapolate from the fact that what Albert Camus does in this book is wrestles with a series of archetypes, ways of living life, different styles of life choice and personalities, from the artist to the scientist to the Don Juan. Each one he outlines what their commitments are to, I'd say what their gods are, and how their lives, in fact, in all of these examples, sort of end up in their own brand of folly. And I would say that in his attempt to wrestle with these different life paths, what he's actually doing is taking a metaphysic, namely absurdism, absurd creation, the idea that there is no ultimate meaning to life. We give life our own meaning. There is no God. That being the case in Camus' view, we must make our own God or become our own God. We must dedicate our lives to art or dedicate our lives to the pursuit of women as the only alternative to, well, non-absurd creation. He says there is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Judging whether life is or is not worth living amounts to answering the fundamental question of philosophy. A little later in the book, page 18, while lamenting the futility of mechanistic knowledge and classification, he says, you teach me that this wonderful and multicoloured universe can be reduced to the atom, and that the atom itself can be reduced to the electron. All this is good, and I wait for you to continue. But you tell me of an invisible planetary system in which electrons gravitate around a nucleus. You explain this world to me with an image. I realise then that you have been reduced to poetry. You have already changed theories, so that the science that was to teach me everything ends up in a hypothesis. That lucidity founders in metaphor. That uncertainty is resolved in a work of art. So he's questioning the modernist worldview and its existentialist nature here, and whether or not it tends towards suicide. He says that a man is always prey to his truths. Once he has admitted them, he cannot free himself from them. Thus the absurd becomes God, and that inability to understand becomes the existence that illuminates everything. I find this absolutely fascinating because this is brilliant philosophy. It's coming and cutting right to the bottom of the matter. It's not dancing around the surface. You know, it's questioning the foundations, the metaphysics and epistemology of people, and how that epistemology, whether that is divine creation, intelligent design, or absurd creation, what are its conclusions? And to me, it looks like Camus points towards the conclusion of existential philosophy being suicide. But of course, Camus is not a Christian philosopher. Camus is an absurdist philosopher, and he sums up the absurd man on page 58. He says, the absurd man thus catches sight of a burning and frigid, transparent and limited universe in which nothing is possible, but everything is given, and beyond which all is collapse and nothingness. But what does life mean in such a universe? Strong words, and totally true. This is the worldview of an absurdist. In fact, I'm going to cut into a clip now of William Lane Craig, philosopher, theologian and apologist, discussing this exact point.
What of the universe? Is it utterly pointless? If its destiny is a cold grave in the recesses of outer space, the answer must be yes. It is pointless. There is no goal, no purpose for the universe. The litter of a dead universe will just go on expanding and expanding forever. And what of mankind? Is there no purpose at all for the human race? Or will it simply peter out someday, lost in the oblivion of an indifferent universe? The English writer H.G. Wells foresaw such a prospect. In his novel, The Time Machine, Wells' time traveler journeys far into the future to discover the destiny of man. All he finds is a dead Earth, except for a few lichens and moss orbiting a gigantic red sun. The only sounds are the rush of the wind and the gentle ripple of the sea. Beyond these lifeless sounds, writes Wells, the world was silent. Silent? It would be hard to convey the stillness of it. All the sounds of man, the bleating of sheep, the cries of birds, the hum of insects, the stir that makes the background of our lives, all that was over. And so Wells' time traveler returned. But to what? To merely an earlier point on the purposeless rush toward oblivion. When, as a non-Christian, I first read Wells' book, I thought, no, it can't end that way. But this is reality in a universe without God. If there is no God, it will end that way, like it or not. There is no hope. There is no purpose.
As I mentioned before, throughout this book, Camus explains and describes the plights and failures of many existentialist archetypes. And in the final pages, he describes Sisyphus and his life condemned by the gods to ceaselessly carry and roll a rock up a hill. He calls this the rock's victory. He describes the boundless grief too heavy to bear and says that these are our nights of Gethsemane, us being the existentialists. In the final sentence, Camus prescribes the medication for the problem he lays out in the prior pages. He says that one must imagine Sisyphus happy. A simple solution, and I would ask you, is this solution good enough for you? Are you happy with curing the problem at the symptom level, or do you need to cure it at the cause? I'll leave that with you. All the best. See you later.